tickets in the same location and date as each of our victims. Mr. Miller?
Coincidence.
Coincidence, maybe, but it is going to be hard for you to explain away your teeth marks in Tiffany Heights and Ryder.
Never met her.
You just keep telling yourself that, my friend.
TV dramas like CSI make forensic detective work look like it's just about foolproof. And it's true that since the late 1980s, DNA analysis and other forensic tools have helped both identify the guilty and exonerate the innocent in cases nationwide.
But forensic science is not quite as cut and dried as it may seem. A new report by a White House advisory council is urging federal prosecutors and judges to tread cautiously when dealing with forensic evidence when the underlying science has not been proven by testing and research. CBS News Justice reporter Paula Reid is here with more. Paula, good morning.
Good morning.
This is a highly critical report from the country's top science and technology experts. What were their biggest concerns?
I think a lot of people are going to be very surprised to hear that this distinguished panel is calling into question scientific methods that have been used for decades, both to convict people and to let people go free. Their biggest complaint is the way scientific evidence is essentially assessed by jurors. The judge lets experts from both sides come up, debate it, and then the jurors ultimately decide what is and is not science. And this panel wants that to be determined before this information gets into the courtroom.
What are the most common methods that they're saying we should think twice about that we all think are without reproach?
So to be clear, we are not talking about single source DNA or fingerprints. We saw that those were used in the bombing investigation just this last week. What they're concerned about are some of these comparison methods. For example, bite mark analysis. So if you have a bite mark on a suspect, you take an imprint from a victim and compare them under the assumption that that's a very rare chance that you would get a bad match. But they don't think that that's a scientifically rigorous comparison. They're also very concerned about firearms analysis. This is a big deal for the federal government because they use this a lot. And this analysis tries to match ammunition to a specific firearm based on markings that that specific firearm made on the ammunition.
So what are their specific recommendations then to agencies that have the oversight in these kinds of situations?
Well, they want them to spend a lot of money to do a lot more research. Which of course sounds reasonable, but they're up against some really powerful interests here. Law enforcement is incredibly concerned that if they go out and they do this research and it's found that these techniques are faulty, that could put into jeopardy a lot of convictions. You're talking about potentially releasing a percentage of the prison population. They're also up against expert witnesses. Big money, big business.
Well, to that end, there's been some recommendations for the Justice Department. How have they responded?
The Department of Justice, the Attorney General have essentially said thanks, but no thanks.
Wow.
They think that this is just one voice in the room. They know that some of these techniques are controversial. They also believe that they left out some of the studies in their analysis. And ultimately, they think that they are doing what they should be doing in connection with what the Supreme Court has ruled that they should do, which is allow the judges to decide who gets in the courtroom and then ultimately let the jury decide what is science.
So is this, Paul, is this ultimately likely to have any effect on how cases are tried?
I'm feeling there are going to be a lot of appeals.
Yeah.
Not one defense attorney I talked to is not familiar with this report. I think they're going to try to introduce it now in trials. They're going to try to use it to appeal previous convictions. But again, the system is what it is, and there's very powerful interest to not change the way things are done. So ultimately, I think it's going to be used by a lot of defense attorneys to question expert witnesses and to appeal prior convictions.
All right, Paula Reid, thank you very much.